Anyone here remember what November 4th was? Not Britney Spears' birthday. And not Paris Hilton's wedding day. Yes, presidential elections where? United States. Well, there are other countries in the world that elect presidents. We shouldn't be so chauvinist. Yes, the entire media and public was riveted to the results of the US election. And so Israel patiently waited to that day and then invaded Gaza, killing 6 Palestinian militants, knowing full well that it would evoke Palestinian mortar and missile attacks again. And that's exactly what Israel wanted. It was looking for a pretext to launch another attack on Gaza, which had been planned at least as early as March 2007. But you know those Islamicists, those Muslim crazies, they're so fanatical. And so was Hamas. Hamas kept saying fanatically that we're ready to renew the ceasefire. We're ready to renew the ceasefire. But Israel has to lift the blockade of Gaza. Those were the terms of the ceasefire. Israel said no. By this point, Sarah Roy, the Harvard political economist and the world's leading authority on Gaza's economy, she also happens to be the daughter of a survivor of Auschwitz concentration camp. Sarah Roy wrote in December 2008, "The breakdown of an entire society is happening in front of us in Gaza, but there is little international response beyond UN warnings, which are ignored." And now the people of Gaza, they were confronted by 2 stark options. One, they could acquiesce in their gradual destruction. Or 2, they could resist. Hamas chose to resist, although it must be said, the resistance was largely symbolic. Even a former Israeli commander in Gaza, the former IDF commander in Gaza, he said, talking to his fellow Israelis, he said, "You cannot just land blows, leave the Palestinians in Gaza in economic distress, and expect that Hamas will just sit around and do nothing." It's easy enough to condemn Hamas for the rocket and mortar attacks. But those who do condemn them, as does almost all of the human rights organizations, it seems to me that if you condemn them, you still have an obligation to show what other option did they have. If you don't show another option, you're in effect saying that the people of Gaza had a legal and moral obligation to just lie still and die. In any event, Israel decided to expedite the process, and on December 27th, it launched its attack on Gaza. The attack lasted 22 days, what Amnesty International called the 22 days of death and destruction. What happened during those 22 days? Nowadays, when the media, even when reputable human rights organizations, when they refer back to those days, they call it the Gaza War. There was a war in Gaza. And I have little doubt that when history books are written, they will record that episode as the Gaza War. Israel has been emphatic that there was a war in Gaza. They said after the 22 days they were very proud of what they had achieved in Gaza and what they had accomplished. They said, now we show those Arabs, those Muslims, who's who and what's what. We've shown them who's in charge in this corner of the world. And how did we show them? Well, Israel said, because we won the war in Gaza. We won the war in Gaza. But then along came an Israeli strategic analyst, and he wrote, it's very dangerous for Israel to believe it won the war when there was no war. In reality, not a single battle was fought during the 22 days of fighting. A former Israeli foreign ministry official, he said there was no war. Hamas sat in its bunkers and came out when it was all over. Well, there was no war in Gaza. What did happen in Gaza? On the military plane, it's fairly straightforward. The statistics are supplied by Israel. It began with the air assault on Gaza. And by the end of the 22 days, Israel had flown about 2,800 to 3,000 combat missions over Gaza. Every plane returned. Not a single plane was downed. In fact, not a single plane was damaged, which is not altogether too surprising because the people of Gaza had no anti-aircraft defenses to speak of. After the first week began the land and air assault on Gaza. The Israeli soldiers, they were equipped with special night fighting equipment. Hamas couldn't even see them, let alone tangle with them. No battles, no fighting, no planes downed, no planes damaged. Hamas couldn't even see the Israeli soldiers when they entered Gaza, let alone tangle with them. So what happened in Gaza? Actually, we have the testimony, or a testimony which a lawyer might call unimpeachable. That is, we have the testimony of the Israeli soldiers themselves, who after the attack on Gaza gave personal witness to what they experienced. Here's what they had to say. Soldier, there was nothing there. Ghost towns, except for some livestock, nothing moved. Soldier, most of the time it was boring. There were not really too many events. Soldier, I did not see one single Arab the whole time we were there, that whole week. Soldier, everyone was disappointed about not engaging anyone. Soldier, usually we did not see a living soul, except for our soldiers, of course. Not a soul. Soldier, go ahead. Ask the other soldiers how often they encountered combatants in Gaza. Nothing. No one. Soldier, there was supposed to be a tiny resistance force upon entry, but there just wasn't any. Sounds kind of surreal. Sort of funny. A war with only one side. And it would be funny were it not for the other half. For the other half, those on the receiving end, for the other half, all you have to do, and I would do it now if time allowed me, because I have a computer in front of me, all you have to do, if any of you has a laptop, you can follow along with me. All you have to do is go to Google and enter the words, breaking the silence. Breaking the silence. And what will come up on the screen is a collection of testimonies by Israeli soldiers. And then when you have that document on your screen, all you have to do on the search function is enter the word insane. Insane. And you'll see it comes up once, twice, 3 times, insane, insane, 5 times, insane, 6 times, insane, 7 times, insane. The soldiers were interviewed separately, but the same word kept leaping to mind of each soldier. Israel used insane amounts of firepower in Gaza. Israel used insane amounts of firepower in Gaza. No battles, no enemy in the field, no fighting, but Israel used insane amounts of firepower in Gaza. One soldier said, "This was firepower such as I had never known. There were blasts all the time. The earth was constantly shaking." Another soldier said, "On the ground you hear these thunderous blasts all day long. I mean, not just tank shelling, which was a tune we'd long gotten used to, but blasts that actually rocked the outpost, to the extent that some of us were ordered out of the houses we were quartered in for fear they would collapse." The soldiers invaded Gaza, commandeered the Palestinian homes, are firing into the horizon, but these insane amounts of firepower are causing the ground underneath the soldiers to quake. And so they're told to leave the houses or the houses will collapse on them. So what did happen in Gaza?